Welcome to this week's End of Days Update, coming to you from Cobbs Creek, Virginia. We're at Cornerstone Fellowship Church, having a great time this last Sunday. If you're anywhere near Richmond or close to Cobbs Creek, come tonight. We'll have a great time Wednesday night. And if you're in Florida this weekend, we'll be in Kissimmee at Freedom Life Church Friday and Sunday morning. We'll have a great time. Folks are very hungry. We had such a great time there in Cobbs Creek. It was good to be back. Man, we're coming to you every single week to look at the different things that point to the coming of the Lord, specifically the gathering of nations for the Ezekiel 38 war, because we know the second coming has sign after sign after sign, but the rapture is signless. So if we can see what's going to happen just after the rapture, we can kind of get some timing there. And we know the rapture is about 7 years before the second coming, maybe a little bit of a gap there, but the tribulation doesn't start until Israel signs a contract with the Antichrist. So the rapture doesn't cause the tribulation, it's the signing of that agreement. But the agreement can't be signed until the church leaves because we have so much authority that the Antichrist can't even come on the scene. So, man, it's amazing how the Lord wants us to know this stuff. Remember, He rebuked the Pharisees over and over, never rebuked the crowd except for one time. He said, you can tell what the weather's going to be, but you don't know your hour of your visitation. So He wants us to know what time it is. Why? Because you change. You pick up the pace. If you thought the Lord was coming tomorrow, you'd be a lot kinder, a lot sweeter tonight, I would think. And I hear people say, well, you don't need to get end-time preaching. There's no need for end-time preaching. Well, tell a quarterback at the end of the game not to look at the play clock. You look at the play clock because you can make alterations because you're running out of time. Just as the clock is counting down, you go, man, I got 2 minutes, I got 1 minute. We're watching the clock tick down to literally zero because of the things that are happening in the nations that are exactly what the Bible said. We're so blessed to watch one thing after another. You can just do a checklist. Click, click, click. The Bible says that, it came to pass. The Bible says that, it came to pass. So let's pick up with what's happened around Israel. We haven't gotten into it in a couple of weeks, but you had Jordanian guards at the Temple Mount get arrested by Israeli guards because the Jordanians were letting them have basically skirmishes to push Jews out of the Temple Mount. So the Israelis came out this last week saying, we've got to change the status quo at the Western Wall. And of course, that freaks the Jordanians out because they're technically in charge of the status quo, but they've been helping riots keep Israelis from there. So the biggest thing that's going to happen in the last days is the Temple Mount's going to become the focal point. Well, you have President Biden going there to Israel this week. It was interesting to find out how all of a sudden at the very last minute he snubbed all these Israeli groups and started saying he's only going to go to Palestinian groups. And then it came out basically the whole leadership of the United States as far as the presidential campaign was going to be, we have to push for Palestinian state, that the Palestinian state is the main location, not Israel. And it's just absolutely insane to hear that coming from the United States of America. So bizarre stuff. Along with that, you had the UN International Atomic Energy Agency come against Iran this last week, showing that Iran has not only got new centrifuges, but have upgraded their centrifuges, and they've gotten uranium enriched to 90%. So it's kind of intriguing to see what Israel said this week about that. Now, this is the absolute complete 180-degree turn. They said 5 different locations in Israel said, we're okay with Iran having a nuclear bomb. We're going to go ahead and let them. So that tells me they're saying all this stuff because all of a sudden something huge is about to happen. And it came out yesterday, blatantly, their monitors were unhooked. It showed the new centrifuges, and Iran said, we're going to go ahead and keep doing this. So the UN said, you know what? Israel is in basically grave danger. Now, the UN never takes up for Israel, and the UN said Israel's in grave danger because of this. So as crazy as that is, you have Iran give Russia 300 drones. So you got Iran helping Russia against the Ukraine. So a lot of crazy stuff going on with that. There were different new meetings in NATO announcing we're getting ready for World War III. I mean, you have the location of the EU saying verbally we're getting ready for World War III. Along with that, you had Russia announce from their space satellites all the United States places that they have targeted with nuclear weapons. So you have Russia going, okay, we have this place targeted, we have this place targeted. You have NATO saying we're getting ready for World War III. So, man, you're watching the setup for the coming of the Lord. I mean, every little nation's doing one thing after another. I said it last week. You got Emmanuel Macron said, I'm calling for the revival of the Roman Empire. So as bizarre as that is, that's exactly what the book of Daniel said you'd see just before the coming of the Lord. So you have more stuff. You have tomorrow, tonight actually, July 13th is going to be the closest the moon's going to come to the earth this year, the supermoon. So many things happening with solar flares. A thing came out this last week where the solar flares were going to be so bad that it would mess up people's cell phones. So you got radical earthquakes, radical floods, natural stuff going crazy, along with all the nations doing exactly what the Bible says they would do right before the coming of the Lord. How exciting. That tells us we're about to see the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. So let's always go back to the Scripture so we can tell where we are. Number one, Israel made a nation. Number two, Jerusalem won back. Jesus said the generation that sees those two events will not pass away till all is fulfilled. So not only that, our new book has 70 some odd signs. That's the two main signs. But after that, you've got the Hebrew language restored, Ethiopian Jews brought back. You got the fertility of the land of Israel. You got the revival of the Roman Empire. You have fish showing up in the Dead Sea. This is my favorite one. In the Dead Sea where Sodom and Gomorrah was, the Dead Sea turned blood red right there on the Day of Atonement. You have foxes on the Temple Mount. You have 172 different species of predatory birds. So you got nature getting in position, the cleanup crew getting in position. Pretty amazing. You have the Temple Mount ritual baths fill up with water. That's another sign of the coming of the Lord. You had Russia build the arch for Baal worship in Palmyra. That's a big deal because that's right where the Tower of Babel was. So you have the Talmud said that's the last thing you'd see right before the coming of the Messiah. I love that the Sanhedrin's been getting everything ready, along with the red heifers, along with the incense, along with the worm secretes that red color. All these things are in position getting ready for it. So it's just mind-boggling that everything could be happening at once. So you have many more signs. Men will be lovers themselves. We have selfie sticks. As crazy as that is, you have 70 some odd signs of showing us how close we are to Jesus coming back. Man, aren't we blessed to be living when more verses are coming to pass than any other time. For every one verse there is about the first coming of the Lord, there's 8 times more about the second coming. So very, very active so we can tell how close we are. So after that, you've got signals. You've got tons of signs. Then you've got signals. You have the blood red moons on Passover and Tabernacles. 4 in a row. NASA calls it a tetrad. When's the last time you had 4 in a row on Passover and Tabernacles? 1967 when Jerusalem was won back. 1948 when Israel was made a nation. 1492 at the Edict of Expulsion when the Jews were kicked out of Spain. So you've got blood red moons, specific dates tying to when Israel had radical things happening. So the Lord's signaling in the heavens something's up. I really like the next one. That's the Bethlehem star. You had Jupiter, Regulus, Venus come together at the birth of Jesus. How wild is that? And then you had Regulus do retrograde motion, formed a crown over Jupiter because Jupiter's a king planet. So the constellation was Virgo at his birth. This last year, NBC Nightly News said we have a celestial event, Jupiter, Regulus, Venus. I thought, wow, Bethlehem star, first time in 2,000 years. What was the constellation? Leo. He's the Lion of the tribe of Judah. So you've got many more things that happen in the heavenlies. If you went into just the year 2017, there were so many heavenly activities that I told the Lord, I said, Lord, if you don't come in 2017, you missed a wonderful opportunity. But we got a little bit more time. So where are we? We're right at the very end. This is it. We accelerate. We go for it. It's not an escape theology. It's a hustle theology. Let's get as many people born again as we possibly can. What do? Help your local church. Help your local pastor. Be more engaged. When you're getting ready to get married, you talk on the phone more than you did when you're engaged. You talk on the phone every single day. You're engaged with the Lord. So let's be close to Him, do His bidding, speak for Him, minister for Him, demonstrate that Jesus came out of the grave because we're about to see Jesus face to face. Wow. All these activities are pointing to the return of the King. Have a blessed, awesome week. We'll come back and see what's happened. We'll be intriguing to see what happens with Iran. Iran's doing so many different things right now, along with Russia, along with Turkey, and then we'll see what all happens. We're going to have a wonderful time seeing Jesus face to face. Have a blessed week.
Thanks for joining us today at the End of Days Update. If you'd like to be notified every time there's a new post, just go to the edu at josephmorris.com and subscribe to receive email alerts. If these posts and updates have been a blessing to you, please consider making a one-time donation to help get the message out, or even becoming a monthly partner with Joseph Morris Ministries. Thanks again for tuning in to the EDU, and we'll see you next week.